Okay, today I'm here with Tanya Stevenson. Thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us today, Tanya. Probably best known for your appearances on Channel 4, but now you're the Chief Executive of the Horse Race Sponsors Association. Yeah. Is that your main thing these days?
One of many. No, it's not a main thing, but it's a really exciting opportunity, especially going forward with everything that racing seems to be struggling with. Because I will go on to it a little bit later, because I stepped out of racing for a while, I've had the opportunity to look back into the sport, and I've stepped back out of racing in a totally different industry as well. So seeing it through the different industry's eyes and how where racing fits on that scale. So then coming back in to be asked to do horse race sponsors, you've got all these exciting ideas. You know how technology, social media platforms like that, computer technology, and the lack of racing's knowledge on how to pitch, sort of show their positives data-wise, pairs of eyes, digital footprint, and the amount of people coming through the door, and the opportunity of what can get bigger, rather than what racing has got a really bad habit of, is festering of it on its negativity. Just loves getting embroiled and knotted up in its negativity. And when that's happening, anyone that's looking in is looking in and seeing, oh my goodness me, I don't want to be involved in something that's so negative. So racing should sort of, it never will do, but it should focus more on its positivity. And this opportunity hopefully won't have me bang my head against a wall. Well, hopefully bring some new ideas.
Is it challenging these days to get some firms into sponsorship because of the sort of negativity about gambling, etc., that's happening at the moment?
Yeah, it's totally, it's very tricky, very difficult indeed, and racing has to be aware of that, not just gambling, but other issues such as welfare. But at the moment, gambling is the tricky one, because for so many years, and understandably, and it's through tradition, and it is the sole thing, racing and gambling are married. There's no other way to look at it, but it's the opportunity to bring other entities into racing. You don't just have to focus on the races itself, you can focus on the people, the fashion, and the catering. You can focus on that. You don't have to labour on sponsorship. Start with the small basic things, and then things will grow out of that, other sponsors. But racing sort of just sits on its hands the whole time. It doesn't look to the big picture like retention. It's got not a clue how to do retention. It signs 5-year, 10-year deals, but outside of that, it doesn't look for worst case scenarios, and then also doesn't look for ideal partnerships. There's plenty there.
Okay, now you talk about gambling. You were raised in bookmaking.
Yeah.
So you've come into the sport via the evil world of gambling.
Oh, it's a beautiful world.
You tell us a bit about your beginnings in that?
Yeah, I've been known nothing else, because as a small child and a pram, I sat in the Southend Greyhound track when that was open. That was many years ago when that was open. My mother was a greyhound parader for a couple of trainers who would certainly have some interest to the stewards in this day and age. But they were great trainers, and she used to parade them, and there was no babysitters for me. I used to sit in the paddock in my pram, and the paraders that weren't working would look after me, vice versa. And then of course Dad was our uncle's bookmaker at Southend, so there you go. And then Mother moved from the parading to racing office at Southend, but my academic kind of education was nothing to do with like learning Shakespeare. It was tic-tac and clerking and maths, and I was pretty poor at English initially, because it was all about tic-tac and stuff, and worldly wise, and the people that I used to knock about with, they used to go on holiday quite a few times, but they were great fun. That was great characters.
Tell us a bit about some of the characters, because it's a very colourful world, especially back in those days.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether many people know of Roger Barton, who bets at Romford. At those days, he bet at Southend as well. We used to go to Romford too, so you got this little clique, and Rog was great, and then Dad and Rog and Tony Gardner, we all grouped up to work pitches all around the north, like York and Aintree and Chester, and I used to be the clerk, and so there was some great comments and great characters involved in that, because Roger was fearless, like a fearless kind of, not as much as Freddie Williams, but was renowned to be fearless in those days. And those that may or may not know my father is very introvert. He's not like Roger's animated and he'll heckle and give it some voice. Dad will go along the way, and as long as his opinion's strong. And so I've learnt through that. And then by the age of 12, I was pricing up tissues for South in dogs and Maidstone, as it were, which was a flap. And we went to Ipswich, and there was other tracks, Ramsgate, Canterbury. I stood up at Sittingbourne because they had clashing meetings. I stood up at Sittingbourne and Dad stood up at Canterbury, but he sent me to Sittingbourne thinking, no way would I make it pay. Unfortunately, I did. But we'll get into that a little bit later, because I had, no one knew, but I had dogs with Paul Garland on that occasion. They suspected, but yeah, I mean, I had quite a few dogs with Paul Garland, but my first greyhound though was when we were standing up at Canterbury. But we had some great amusement. Another character pitched next to us at Canterbury was a gentleman called Kevin, but his clerk was Jeff, and Jeff used to do the betting shop for Kevin, and I used to have my golf bets with Kevin. And I remember one year I backed David Duval to win the Bob Hope Classic, and literally he needed a miracle score to win it going into the final round. And we had it on in the steward's box. I had a Footy Sky Sports on with Duval, and all I can remember was Jeff going back and up and down the stairs and saying to Kevin, "Another birdie, Kev. Well done." Another birdie. Short of 59 to win it, Duval. But of course I weren't the only one on Duval. I was harmless, but the other people. But Jeff was another. He knew I loved my cricket, so he invited me to Canterbury one day, and I liked Macmillan and Richardson. The South African, they come in middle order, those two. Richardson kept the wicket David Richardson kept the wicket for South Africa. Macmillan was a pinch hitter. And Jeff knew I liked him, so I used to sit on the boundary with Jeff, and he said, "You really like these two, don't you?" So I said, yeah. So when they went innings halves, Jeff walked right across the pitch into the pavilion. I'm shouting out to him, don't he come back out with their autographs. That's how much mischief he used to get up to. They used to have a on-site betting at Canterbury as well, and I think they in that very match they bet 6-5, something like 5 to 6 each of two. South Africa get 50 in a stupid amount of overs. Of course they would do, because they played Kappa Vessels and Gary Kirsten and obviously Macmillan and Richardson, so you knew they meant it, and we weighed into a bit of that. But yeah.
So was this, it sounds like you were just as much of a punter as you were a bookmaker. Was bookmaking ever going to be a full-time career? Oh,
I was a bookmaker. I mean, like, I'm joking aside, but of course you've got to stray off and enjoy yourself. No, I was a serious bookmaker when I was standing up at Sittingbourne, because I used to take the videos home for both Sittingbourne and Canterbury and watch each race 6 times, i.e. each dog, unless the dog got in really bad trouble, watch it more than once and write little record cards. No such thing as computers in them days.
You had your time then?
Yeah, you had your little record cards. I used to sit up till 1 and 2 in the morning, and then doing a tissue for both tracks with Dad, and of course there were Betamax videos in them days. Betamax, then it went on to VHS. We hadn't even got onto DVDs. We were watching it, we were writing the comments down. And that was a great laugh. And then, because although the trainers and owners were 1 or 2 steps ahead, you still got to be not given too much of a deficit, haven't you? So you had to do the graft. And also the pair of us were stood up in respective pitch 1 at both venues. And so we priced up first. We had to price up first at both venues. And I have to smile, because when I was at Sittingbourne in pitch 1, I have to smile every day, because in pitch 2 was Ben Keith.
But we didn't used to tuck him up.
Ben knows what happens.
So you're totally involved in the bookmaking and the punting. So where did the interest in the media suddenly come from?
There was no interest, to be fair. There was literally no interest, because you say that during the evenings I was pricing up and standing up at the dogs. During the days, 86, I think SIS came to existence, and come to 1987, I think I did 1 or 2 days due to sickness of their full-time staff. And I literally, meaning 1 or 2 days, I was on the course when someone went ill, and I picked the phone up, and you were meant to give the betting shows to the betting shops, and I was just a telephonist, so I was writing the shows down and calling them over on a carbon copy. 88, I got a couple more days, which happened to be at Royal Ascot, and I did them. And then 89 onwards, I got more and more days, and it was latterly, as we're going to, I think it was about 97, where they were looking for someone, Channel 4, that knew something about betting, and Graham Good and Derek Thompson come to me, and they said, you know about betting. So I went to apply to Andrew Franklin. He asked me to go to the Cambridgeshire meeting, and I put my headsets on, and the person I spoke to was Mac, which was great. I suppose he was thinking that, I don't know what he was thinking, but he asked me for something in a very sharp, abrupt manner, and I replied in my normal sharp, abrupt manner, which I must admit did end in an expletive, because it's not for, I can't condone it, but of course if you're in dog tracks the whole time, you're standing up on a pitch, and the banter and the heckling, unfortunately that kind of mannerisms doesn't become you, but that's what happens. So of course when he's asked something in an abrupt tone, and then when I answered back in my sharpish waspish voice, we then both burst out laughing, and we hit it off ever since. But prior to that, about a year or so prior to that, Dave Lawrence, who at that time was in charge of Sky Sports and like myself owned greyhounds, asked me whether I'd come along and be a floor manager on Sky Sports Dogs, which I was. I didn't have a clue about TV, but he said, because I owned dogs, the kennel hands would know me, so if they didn't want a camera near. So I was the one that was organising the parades. If they didn't want a camera near, they're not scared to tell me where to go, so that's where that came out as well. So I had the benefit of listening to talk back in 2 different ways, which was really helpful.